Okay, so far we discussed about different checkpoints. Like we have discussed about standard checkpoint, image checkpoint, bitmap, page, text area, table checkpoint we discussed, and database checkpoint. So all these are we discussed, right? So now what we do is we will discuss about XML checkpoint. Okay, and what is the XML checkpoint here? So an XML checkpoint is used to validate the content of the XML. What is the XML here? Why we use XML? And normally XMLs are used for data storage or data transfer. That's the main intention of the XMLs usually. Whenever you are transferring the data from one server to another server or client to server, then normally we use XMLs to transfer. Also, this XMLs will be used to store the data. Okay, so most of the times, normally what happens is when you are using an UI and when you enter the data in the UI and when you click on submit, then normally it generates one XML file. Probably this could be a web service, or sometimes an XML file will be saved in the local system and that XML file will be transferred. Okay. So there are two things here. One XML file probably it may get saved in your local system, or another XML file will be generated inside the application itself. So for these two kinds of XMLs, they have given two types of checkpoints. One is XML checkpoint from resource, and second one is XML checkpoint from application. When you say XML checkpoint from resource, then here you validate the XML file which is there in the local system. Okay, in XML checkpoint from resource, you validate the XML file which is saved in the local system. When you say XML checkpoint from application, the XML file which is generated by the application and inside the application, you validate that. Okay, so now what we do is first we will see the XML checkpoint from resource, nothing but the XML checkpoint which is saved in the the XML file which is saved in the local system. We validate that by using XML checkpoint from resource. Okay, then we have to see inbuilt checkpoint as well as we need to write the script here. Okay, right. So let's take one XML file. Normally I will create one own XML here. I will create the XML file in our code. Let's say, as I told earlier, we discussed about XML in the VB script also. That time when I told the XML DOM, then I told that XML can have user-defined tags. It's not like that, the pre-tags, the tags are predefined there. You can give any tag name whatever you want according to the content that you are storing there. Okay. Now let's say I'll store something like institute data. Okay. Save this as where do we save here? Okay, sample file .xml. Where is that XML here? XML file. Next, I will store say all batches. I will store here. Okay, now say like this. For each batch I will create one tag. Okay, for one batch I will create one tag here. Then in each batch batch will have certain properties, like maybe I'll say faculty for this batch. Let me give my name here. Then batch ID. Okay, batch ID is 1 type. Okay, then you can say 8 AM. That's a start time, right? Okay, so now you can say batch subjects we will be covering in the batch. Now, sorry, should be subjects. Fine. What do you have to do? For each subject I will give one tag. Say subject I'll give the name or content as first one is manual testing. Subject. This time I'll say video script. We'll say then we'll also say speed quality center. Then we'll say SQL server. Okay, those are the subjects that covered for batch 1. Just consider that. Then you can say students. Then for each student I will create one tag called student. Then you can write the names here. Just write one by one name here. Is guest. Is guest. Is guest. Okay. Now, so for this batch, these are the people. Just consider that. Okay. Now you can also create one more batch and you can store remaining people there. Okay, so according to the batch, so you will store all the students, but there could be more, but I just written only this as of now. So this is an XML file. If you want to see this XML file is properly created or not, so you see whatever the tag names I have used here, I used my own tags. When you are looking at an XML, look at only the structure. Tag names are user defined. I have given the tag names because I am storing the data like institute, batches and students and the subjects. So tag names I have given accordingly. If you look at the structure, first I have created institute tag. Inside that institutes I created one element for batches. Inside batches I am creating one batch. Inside batch I am creating subjects, I am creating students. So that's how the structure will be when you are creating the XML. So XML is structure based, not the tag based. Normally you can give any tag name whatever you want, but make sure that you have given every tag that whatever you are creating, every tag must be closed and child is being closed before the parent. So before parent tag closes, child tag must be closed. Okay. If you want to see whether this XML is properly created or not, open the file. Let me open this in now. Let me open this XML file in a browser, and in any of the browser. If you can see the structure, same structure whatever you have created here, that means that XML file is properly created. Then if your structure is not good, now let's say for example I have created students element but I forgot to close students element, then you will get the error. So the structure and all will not be displayed. Okay, so that's how we can understand whether that XML is correct or not. Fine. So I got one XML file here. Okay, so how do you insert the checkpoint, XML checkpoint now? Then the XML checkpoint, what we are discussing is XML checkpoint from resource, the checkpoint which is saved in the XML file, which is saved in the local system. Then how do you do that? Go to design, checkpoint, and then you select XML checkpoint from resource. But if you see that now remaining checkpoints are disabled, again like database checkpoint we discussed yesterday. So except these three checkpoints, remaining checkpoints are disabled. The reason why other checkpoints are disabled, because those checkpoints directly deal with the application. So when you want to use these checkpoints, connection has to be established with the application. So usually the connection will be established during recording time or runtime. So only those checkpoints will be enabled only during recording time for you. But remaining checkpoints whatever are enabled will not deal with the application directly. If you look at the database checkpoint, yesterday we have seen that. So database checkpoint, we have not opened the application. We can directly connect it to the database without opening the application. Similarly, when you say XML checkpoint here, so from resource you will connect it to the XML file which is saved in the local system. You don't need to open the application. Similarly, when you see file content checkpoint, okay, generally you validate the file which is saved in the local system. Again, you don't need to connect it to the application. So the checkpoints which don't deal with the application directly, those are enabled. The checkpoints which deal with the application directly, then those are disabled here. Okay, now XML checkpoint from resource. Now as soon as you select the XML checkpoint from resource, what it is asking? It is asking for the XML file to be mapped. Okay, what is the XML file that you want to validate? Then you select the XML file here. Click on browse, it will open the open XML file window. It will ask you to select the XML file here, and then you enter the path, and then you can see that XML file whatever we have created is displayed. As soon as you click on it, you can click on as soon as you click on that XML file, it will be selected, and then click on open. Now that XML file is selected, and click on OK. Then so you can see that XML file complete structure is displayed here. So complete structure, all the tags are being displayed, and for each tag the tag name and value has been displayed here. Tag name is this one. Tag name is displayed here. When you select the tag name, every tag, nothing but the element. Every element will have something called attributes, nothing but the properties. What is meant by attributes? I have given here, right? This is what attribute. So for only batch tag, attributes are there, remaining attributes are not there. So if you look at this, when I select batch, all the attributes have been displayed here. When you select remaining, no attributes, because for remaining elements I have not defined any attribute. Now think about your validation point. What exactly you want to validate in the XML? Now what I have to say is, for first batch, for the batch, faculty name must be Nanda. Just consider that. Okay, now what I have done is I selected the batch here. So the attributes are displayed. Now do one thing, unselect everything here, unselect everything, select only the batch, select only the batch, oops, 1 minute. Okay, so as soon as you select the batch, attributes are displayed. What is your validation point? Batch, sorry, faculty must be so and so faculty. So what you have to do is, you have to, your validation, technically your validation point will be like this. So you have to validate the faculty attribute for the batch element. Okay, so you are validating the faculty name, nothing but, faculty is nothing but one of the property we have given, one of the attribute. So you have to validate the faculty attribute for the batch element. Then what I am doing is, I selected the batch element here, and then you have to select the faculty and give your expected here. Okay, so if you want, you can parameterize or you can use the regular expression as well. Okay, or you can give the constant value, anything is okay. So now I have given the constant value as Nanda is the faculty name, that is what I am expecting. Similarly, what you are doing is, you have to say first subject must be manual testing. First subject must be manual. So what I am doing is, first subject element I am selecting here. So first subject element is nothing but manual, contains the value as manual testing. So what you are doing now depends on the validation point. Then you are selecting whether you are selecting a value attribute or tag name you can select, or you can also select the attributes, something like property and property value. What properties have to be there? What are those property values for the XML elements? So it's very simple. Validating the XML is nothing but, okay, XML elements, tag name, see whether this is the tag name or not, or whether this is the value or not for this particular element, see whether this is the value for this particular property or for this particular attribute. Okay, so all these things. So what I have done, according to my validation point, I have selected one attribute and I have selected one value for two different elements. So you select that and then you click on OK. XML checkpoint will be inserted. Remember one thing here, now when I have selected that XML file, right, from which path I have selected, maybe under D drive and sample, something that, inside D drive there is some other folder, from that I have selected. So next time onwards, whenever you run the script, XML file must be there in the same location, because you have mapped the local path there. If the path is changed, then it will not be able to validate the XML file. Always remember that. So now onwards, what it does, whenever you run the script, it will go to the XML file which is saved in the local system. Then the content of the XML, not complete content, it will validate. Whatever the tag or attributes you have selected, only those tags will be validated, and then it will verify whether those elements, whatever we have selected in the checkpoint, those elements are containing the values, appropriate values or not. Okay, those values are matching with the XML file what is saved in the local system. Okay, so every time it will connect to the local system and compare the values with the local system values, local system whatever the file it is saved. So it will connect to that file and takes the values and compare those values with the expected values which we have given in the checkpoint. Then if you run the script now, it will get pass because we have not changed anything in the XML. So it should get pass. Let's see the result. It is passed. Okay, so there is no change. Now what I will do is, just let's see. Expand everything. XML checkpoint. We just open now. just show it as passed. That's it. Now what I am doing is, I just gone to this XML now. I am changing the faculty name. I am just changing here. Okay. Then I am changing the from manual testing to automation. So expected value I had given for first subject must be manual testing. That's what I have given. But now the XML content has been changed. First subject has been updated from manual testing to automation testing. See whether it will get pass or not. View results. It's failed now because data has been changed. Select this. It says XML checkpoint is failed. If you want to see more details, then in the results open captive data. Then it will display the XML checkpoint here, and click on checkpoint results. It will show clearly whatever is failed. Batch failed. Okay, so see attributes, number of children type any child. So you can see everything. Also if you see subject has also failed. Here actual is automation testing, but value is expected value is manual. This is what expected, this is what actual is. So like this you validate the XML file. It's very simple. Just you select the XML file and you select what attribute you want to validate, or what HTML tag, XML tag that you want to validate, or what value that you want to validate. First element should contain this value, second element should contain this value. Like this you select the element, you select the value, or you select the properties. Okay, and then you provide the expected value. So this is how we validate the XML file using checkpoint. But one of the problem with this checkpoint is, what in case if that XML structure has been changed? They introduced some elements in between, but it will not validate those changes. And also I have selected first subject element under first batch. Now I have introduced one more batch, just consider that. So now the batch whatever I selected may come down, so it will not validate that again. So again I need to go to the checkpoint and then I need to update the checkpoint content inside, because the current batch may come down to second batch, and I may introduce new batch on top of it. So if there are any changes and all, this XML checkpoint will not consider those changes. So every time whenever there is any change in the XML or structure has been, if the XML structure is changed, you have to go to the XML checkpoint and then you need to update the checkpoint, or you may need to reinsert the checkpoint, because it will map to always old structure in the checkpoint. So if you want to get new structure, again you need to map the checkpoint XML file, you need to map again. So that's one of the biggest drawback here. No, you cannot validate two XML files. You can validate only one XML file at a time. Okay? But by using script you can do that normally. By using XML, by using script, using XML DOM and all, you can compare two XMLs. But we will see that slowly. Okay? So this is how XML checkpoint from resource will work. So it will validate the XML file content which is saved in the local system. The XML file which is saved in the local system. Now we will see the scripting part, how normally we can do with the scripting. Okay. So when we are validating that XML file using script, then the process will be like this. First, you need to create the XML DOM object. Okay, why XML DOM object? Because in this XML DOM object, they have defined all the methods related to the XML file validations, retrieving the content of the XML, creating the XMLs, everything you can do by using XML DOM. First, you need to create the instance of XML DOM object, and then you need to, okay, let's take one by one step here. I will write here first thing. First is create XML DOM object instance. Then load XML file into the DOM object. This is the second one. Third one is validate, verify the parse error of the XML. See if XML file is proper or XML file has got problem. Then another one is retrieve attributes or content of XML and validate. And then you can also save the XML if you want. If you want to change, you can change the XML. So you can create the attributes, or you can modify the XML properties. You can modify the content of the XML. You can do everything here. But for us, it may not be so important modifying the XMLs and all. What we do normally, XML file is already there. We retrieve the data from XML. We validate the content. That's it. Okay. So this is normally a step-by-step process whenever we are validating the XML. Okay, now how normally we do this? Step by step. First, what is the first step here? Set OXML equals to create object Microsoft.XML DOM. That's how we create the XML DOM object. So that is the first step. How do you create an XML DOM object? You can say Microsoft.XML DOM. Then take that into one variable. So this is the first step here. Next, second one is load XML file into XML DOM object. Now XML DOM object, you don't need to say Microsoft.XML DOM again. We have created the instance, and instance is being stored in this. Okay, so XML document is stored in OXML object here. Then by using OXML, you can access that XML DOM object. Say OXML dot load. Okay, XML dot load. Normally this should display the menu list, but it is not recognizing that XML DOM object. But during runtime, it may recognize. Just wait for some time. Then load. You need to load the XML file. You need to provide the absolute path of the XML file. I'm loading. Then you can say sample file.xml. The XML. Next, what's the next step here? Once you load the XML file, you have to validate the error. You have to verify whether XML is appropriate or XML is not proper. Then verify for parse errors. Then how do you verify for the parse errors? You say OXML dot parse error. What is meant by parse error? Okay, if the XML file structure is not proper, then you saw that XML file was not displayed properly. So that's, you call it as parse error. There is a error in the XML. Okay, so normally you can say parse error dot error code. It will display the error number. But You don't need to provide the error code also. When you say xml.parseError, it will retrieve the error number. If there is any error, it displays some number. If there is no error in the XML, then it displays 0 as a parse error. Then you can say if parse error is not equivalent to 0, then if it is not 0, there is some error. Then you can say report event make fail, comma, verify the XML file. That is a step that you are performing. Say there is some parse error in XML file, error captured as, you need to display what error it is. How do you retrieve the error from the XML? Just writing VBCRLF, so that error has to be displayed. Then you can say oxml dot parse error dot reason. Okay, so reason is nothing but it will display the reason for the error. Say end if. So in case if that XML file is not proper, then you cannot continue with the remaining piece of code. You can say exit run. Right. So this is the third step. And now, so you are done with verifying the parse errors as well. So once you are done with verifying parse errors, then what is the fourth step here? You retrieve the content of the XML. Depends on what exactly you want to validate. Then you have to retrieve the content, and then you have to validate, so whether that content is according to the expected values or not. That okay. Now what's our first validation here? Faculty, right? We have to validate the faculty name. So what you have to do when you want to get the faculty name, for which faculty? First batch, right? So first you need to retrieve the batch element. First you need to retrieve batch. There could be multiple batches. So I want to validate the first batch element, first batch faculty, right? So you have to retrieve first batch element. Then from that first batch element, you need to retrieve the property value of faculty. Faculty is a property. You need to retrieve the value of that particular attribute. So you call property is nothing but the attribute here. Okay. Then how do you retrieve first batch element? oxml dot. There are two things here to retrieve. Then there is one method called select single node. I am not sure if we have discussed it. Select single node. What is mean by select single node? If you give the XML path, complete XML path, based on the path it will retrieve the node. Node is nothing but the element again. So what you have to do, you have to provide the complete structure now. Institute slash batches slash batch. So that is a path. If multiple batches are there, then you have to say batch of square bracket 0, 1, 2, 3 like that you can give. So select single node method is used to retrieve a particular node based on the path. Okay, element path. But instead of giving that, what you can do is you can also give like this: oxml dot get elements by tag name of batch. Remember, it's case sensitive. Tag names in HTML it's not case sensitive here, but in XML it is case sensitive. You must have to give the tag name in the same case how you have defined in the XML. So we have defined with uppercase batch name. So that's the reason here I am giving in uppercase. Then you can say set for batches equals to. So it will retrieve all the elements which have got the tag name as batch. So there could be multiple batches, but right now only one batch is there. but there could be multiple batches we may create. So you take it as if you say batch here, then right now it will return only one element, but in reality it could be multiple elements it may return. Now what you have to do is, if you want to retrieve first batch element from this, what you have to say, O batches dot item of 0. So item of 0 means first batch, item of 1 second batch, like that. But before that you need to verify whether any elements it returned or not. There could be no batch running currently, so now batch must be, there will be no batch elements. When no batch is running, obviously there will be no batch element. When you say get elements by tag name of batch, if there are no batches, then it will return as 0. Collection will be empty. Now how do you say collection is empty or it returns some batches? Then you can say batches dot length. Length is nothing but the count here. If zero, then you can say report event fail. Okay, validate the content of first batch. No batch elements exist in XML, right? And then you can say exit run. All this we have already seen in the XML. That's the reason, XML DOM, when we learned in VB script. So that's the reason I'm not explaining too much here. Okay. Now, so in case if no batches exist, then you just write a fail statement and then you stop the execution. So if the length is not 0, then you can continue with the remaining. Now we can say set O first batch equal to O first batch equals to O batches dot item of 0. What I am doing here, I am accessing the first batch. So length means it will return count. Item of 0 means first batch. Item of 1 means second batch. Item of 2 means third batch, like that. So I am accessing the first batch and I am storing here. Now validate the content of this. Now what is our first validation? Faculty. So what you can say? Get attribute. Okay. So what is the get attribute method does here? Get attribute method will retrieve the value of the attribute, nothing but the property. So you have to provide the attribute name. Okay, if you provide the attribute name nothing but property name, then it will retrieve the value of that property. This is equivalent to get RO property method that we have used in the EFT or QDB. So get RO property, what it does? Okay, for the object that whatever you have given, if you give the property name there, that object dot get RO property of property name, it will go to that object in the application, it will retrieve the value of the given property, right? Value of the given property. Similarly, when you say that XML dot that particular element is nothing but the object here, element dot get attribute, then if you have to provide the attribute name, then it will go to that element, it will go to that property whatever you have given there, it will retrieve the value of that particular attribute, nothing but the property. So then you say faculty here. Remember, attribute name or tag names are case sensitive. Then you can say str faculty name here, actual faculty name, actual faculty name. Then you compare, you can parameterize the expected faculty name here. Then you say if str faculty name equals to just this is what I have given there, right? Then you say reporter dot report event make pass validate the faculty name. Faculty name is displayed as displayed as, you can say str actual faculty name, else then you can say reported dot reported name, sorry, reported dot report event make fail, then you can say validate the faculty name. Faculty name is displayed as str actual faculty name, then you can say VBCRLF expected name is str expected faculty name. We take this variable and we assign the here expected name. You normally can parameterize here. Okay, you can parameterize this. Okay, so this is how normally you validate the attribute. You just say first you get the element. How are we getting the element? You get elements by tag name. It will retrieve the collection of all the elements. Then by using index number from it, then we are validating the we are retrieving particular element. Item of 0, first element. Item of 1, second element. Item of 2, third element. Like that, one by one element you can retrieve. Before that, you have to understand whether any elements are there with that particular tag or not. Whatever the tag name we have provided, you can say that collection dot length. Then if there any element displays, if any element is there, then you can say by using get attribute you can retrieve the property value of any of the element whatever it is. Then let's see if I go execute this now. Okay, so it should pass now because expected and actual are same, it's passed. So faculty, it's matched. Then what I will do is I will just change the expected here. Normally let it be. Okay, so I will change the expected name here. It should be failed. Then go to view, last run results. It's failed. It will display like this. Displayed as this and expected name is this. So this is how normally you validate the properties. Okay. At a time, not two. Through script. Now what you can do is you have to get two elements. Now you can say O batches, right? What you can do is set O second batch equals to you have to take two different elements into two variables. Now if you want to validate second batch faculty also, then str actual faculty for second batch equal to O second batch dot equal to O second batch dot get attribute of faculty. Then you say here this is one condition and second batch faculty equals to so and so. Like this you validate multiple elements. Okay, so but at a time you can access only one element, not multiple elements, right? Okay. Next, so this is how normally you validate the attributes of XML file. Next one is here You have to validate the content of the XML, not the attributes, content, nothing but the text of the XML elements. Now I have to retrieve the first subject name. What is the subject, first subject that we are teaching here, right? So it should be manual testing, right? It should be manual testing. Then what will say, expected name I will give as str first subject name equal to manual testing. Then how do you get the first subject? From the batch, first batch, you have to get the, how the batches have been displayed, element name as subject, or you can say like from this batch we are getting this batch first, we are getting this batch. From this batch we can get all the elements which are starting with the subject, or what you can do, from this batch first you get the subjects, from the subjects you can get the batch, each subject name. But or you can directly get this batch dot get elements by tag name of subject. If you give that, all these subjects will be returned. Then what I am doing is here, set O subjects equals to O first batch dot get elements by tag name of subject. Okay, get elements by tag name of subject. So what it will do, it will return all the elements which are having the tag name as subject. Okay. Dot item of 0. What is that? O first subject equals to, what I am doing, from the first batch I am getting all the subjects, from all the subjects I am taking first batch here. So that subjects dot item of 0, that means first subject. But if there are no subjects given, then what you can say, first you write O subjects dot length equal to 0, that means no subjects mentioned in that. If the length is not 0, some subjects have been mentioned. And if you want to know how many subjects are covering, then there are total 4 subjects or 5 subjects are covering, you can say O subjects dot length, that will give the count of subjects there. Then you can say if that subject length is 0, you write a message, no subjects are being covered here. But if the length is not 0, then you give a message, okay, these many subjects are there, something like that. Okay, you can do. Length is for getting the count from the collection. Okay, then say O first subject dot, how do you get the content of the tag? Inner text is for HTML. Inner text is for HTML. Remember that the structure, even though the content is same, the tag name, and then you will give the text and you close the tag. But when you are doing the same thing in HTML, you call it as inner text. But when you are using XML, you just call it as text only. Okay, not the inner text. So when you are using HTML, you call it as inner text. Okay, when you are using XML, you just call it as text. So text is nothing but this. In between tag starting and ending, you got some text written, right? That is called as text. Same thing if you have written in HTML, in the same way you call it as inner text. Okay, so by using text you can retrieve the text here. str actual subject name. If str actual subject name equal to str expected str first subject name, okay, then you say reported dot report event make pass comma validate the first subject name in first branch. Subject name is displayed as str first subject name, else you write saying that reporter dot report event make fail validate the subject name in first batch. Then you say subject name is displayed as str actual subject name then you can write expected here. You can say expected subject name is str first subject name, that's a variable name that we have given. So like this we validate the content of the XMLs. Okay, so let's see now last round results. Expand this. Two steps have been failed. Faculty name is failed and subject also failed. Expected subject, actual subject displayed as automation testing, but expected is manual testing. Right? Then if you give the expected values properly, then it will get pass. Automation. Then one is failed, one is passed. Okay, because faculty name still I have not changed, but subject name is matching. So this is how normally we validate the XML file. What we do first, okay, we load the XML file and then we verify XML file is properly structured or not, and then we access a particular element. Then if you want to validate the attributes, you can retrieve the attribute name value by using get attribute, or dot attribute means it will retrieve all the attributes. We have learned that in XML DOM in the VB script. So I have not explained in detail all the methods and all, but in the reality how normally we validate the XML files by using this script technique. So in case if there is any structure has been changed and all, changes will be minimal here. You can just give the batch index number there if any new batch is introduced, all this. Okay, so this is how we validate the XML file by using script. So this is about XML checkpoint from resource. But from application, we should have one application which is generated XML. So far we don't have that application. Okay, it's a little difficult to get. In the reality, normally it's not working properly. I will see, I will find one XML file, one application which generates the XML. Then we will see it later, XML checkpoint from application, but the process will be same here. There also you are doing the XML validation, but only the difference is that is generated inside our in application and this is saved in local system. That's only the difference. Okay, so this is about XML checkpoint. Next, another checkpoint is accessibility checkpoint. Okay, this is one of the checkpoint that we don't use much. Okay, so XML accessibility checkpoint is more like page checkpoint that you have. Okay, it's more like page checkpoint only. But in accessibility checkpoint, we validate few things like how many tables are there, and you validate the structure of the table. Okay, if the page contains tables or not. If the page contains tables, how many tables it contains, and then the structure. It just gives the warning message saying that this page contains also tables and all. Or whether the page contains how many frames that page contains. Frame objects are there. Frames are nothing but, again, if you want to structurize the pages, web pages, normally you create different frames and all. See whether the page contains frames or not. If it contains frames, then see it will validate whether the frames contains unique titles or not. Okay, and it will validate the alt property of the image objects. Every image must have something called alt property. Alt is nothing but when you take mouse over onto particular image, it will display some small text below the cursor, like normally it happens for Google and all. So Google image is changed, you just take the mouse onto that image, it will display some text below. That is called alt text, you call it as. So according to the standard, every image should have the alt text like that. Then this accessibility checkpoint will validate whether all the images in the page have got that alt property or not. Then similarly, whether the page contains Java objects or not. Okay. Yeah, some multimedia objects, whether the page contains multimedia objects or not. Okay, all these things normally we can validate by using accessibility. But this is one of the checkpoint which we never get the situation in the real time. We don't need to validate all these things in the reality. The reason because normally when you are doing automation testing, we don't bother about UI and all. Okay, we validate more about the functionality. So UFT, when you are using UFT, it's like you are a functional tester. You are validating more about the functionality, not about the UI. So all this comes under usability testing part. Okay. So whether it has got you call it as tooltip text, or the alt property you call it as tooltip technically. Okay. See how many multimedia objects are there, and see how many images, how many tables it's created and all. So all these are the usability testing. Okay. So normally we don't do this in automation much, but anyway, so since the checkpoint has been given here, then you have to see how that checkpoint works in the reality. Okay, one thing is here, before you insert the accessibility checkpoint, remember accessibility checkpoint works only for the page object. You can insert that accessibility checkpoint only on the page object, nothing but it's a web. Okay, you cannot insert the accessibility checkpoint on Windows based applications. Okay, you cannot insert that. Then before you insert the accessibility checkpoint, you must have to do one setting. Okay, so you have to define the properties of accessibility checkpoint, like what and all you want to validate when you insert the accessibility checkpoint. That has to be defined before you insert it. Normally all these checkpoints so far we have seen, after inserting the checkpoints we are selecting the validation points, what properties we want to validate, what content we need to validate and all. After selecting the checkpoint, after inserting the checkpoint, we have selected that. But for accessibility checkpoint, before you insert the accessibility checkpoint, you need to specify what and all the things that you want to validate. Do you want to validate only images, or do you want to validate frames, or do you want to validate tables, or do you want to validate Java objects? What exactly you want to validate when you insert the accessibility checkpoint? So this setting should be done before you insert the accessibility checkpoint. Then how do you do this setting? Go to tools, go to options, then go to GUI testing in the options, then you can see web here. Under web, then you can see advanced, then select advanced here. When you select advanced, can you see something called accessibility checkpoint here? Then you can see what and all that you can validate here. If you say ActiveX check, then what it says, checks whether the page or frame contains the ActiveX or multimedia objects. If that contains, then it will give a warning message and it will display the list of objects. So this is what ActiveX check, one of the property that you can validate, whether it contains ActiveX objects or not. Second one is alt property. Checks whether the alt attribute, nothing but the property, alt property for relevant objects such as image. See whether all the images contains alt property. If any of the object is lack, that means does not have, then it will give a fail message saying that this object does not have alt property, something like that. Then if you say applet, applets are Java objects. See whether it contains any Java objects. If it contains, gives a warning and it will display list of Java objects what and all there in the page. Frame titles. See whether all the frames whatever we have in the page, all the frames have got the title attribute or not, title property. If any of the frame does not have title property, then it will give a failure message. Then multimedia. Checks whether the page contains multimedia objects. Server side images. Then tables. It's not like it will not validate the content of the table inside text and all. It will just verify how many tables that we have. Okay, so it just say whether page contains, frame contains tables or not. If it contains, just displays the tables and it displays the format, nothing but the HTML tags, whatever the tags they have used in the table. It will not display, it will not validate the content inside the table. For that we use table checkpoint. So in the accessibility checkpoint, then you can validate all these things in any page. Now whatever you want to validate, you must have to select here. Now what and all I have selected? I have selected alt property and I have selected table check. Then I have not selected remaining things. Then click on OK. So I have selected two properties to be validated in the accessibility checkpoint when I insert it. Then what I am doing is here I am navigating to the page. So we have this demo.enterprise. Okay. So then you log into the application. Okay. So now this is the page object that we have. This is the page we have displayed. Then now you insert the accessibility checkpoint on that particular page. To insert the accessibility checkpoint, then again you have to start recording, because this accessibility checkpoint deals with the application directly. So what you do is now you click on record. Then since first time we clicked on it, after opening the tool, it displays recording and run settings window for very first time. You select the first option only, record and run on the browser which is already opened, because we already opened the application. Click on OK and then click on the drop down for checkpoints and then you select the accessibility checkpoint in the list. Click on accessibility checkpoint and then click on the page. You can click on any part of the page, it will display only the page object. Then click on OK. Now we can see how many we have selected here, how many got selected, only 2. Whatever we have selected in the settings, same checkboxes have been selected here also. And try to unselect this, you will not be able to. Try to select any of the checkbox, you will not be able to, because these settings are already done. You have to predefine the settings here. You cannot select any checkbox while inserting it. Before you insert the checkpoint, you do the setting there mandatorily. You have to do the setting there. Then whatever the options you have selected in the settings, same thing will be displayed here. Okay, same thing will be selected. You will not be able to modify it. Okay, so this is only for accessibility checkpoint. Click on OK. Then you stop recording. So accessibility checkpoint has been inserted. Now when I run the script, let's see what happens. See, it did not display any content and all there. Just what you want to validate, how many ActiveX objects or how many frames or how many tables, just it will ask only for that what exactly you want to validate. Then go to view and look at the results. It's failed. Let's see what could be the reason here. It says alt property. Okay, for alt property it is failed. One or more objects in this page missing alt property. So there are total 4 images are there, sorry 5 images are there. For 4 images alt property is not there. So that's the reason it's failed. 5 images are there. 1 image contains alt property. Now let's see what are those 4 images. This is 1 image. Let's spy on this. Look at the alt property. It contains the value. So that's what it is showing. For this image it has got alt property. And this is another image and look at the alt property. It's not there. So that's why it's failed. For this, not there. For this, it is not there. It's also image object. For this, it is not there. So few images does not have alt property. So according to standard, web standard, every image whatever is loaded, image should have the alt property. But some of the images does not have alt property. But in accessibility checkpoint, we have asked to tool saying that validate all the images alt property. You cannot select validate only for this image or this image. When you select the second option alt property, it will take all the images whatever are there. It will validate alt property for all the images whatever are available. So some of the images does not have alt property, so it is failed. Similarly, tables. The tables displayed warning, not the failure. Why it is displayed warning? Because it contains some tables. You can see the structure of the tables. Okay. So each row is nothing but a TD. Sorry. Here how many? All these are rows. In each row, one TD element is there. This contains only one row, two TD elements. So these many tables it has got. Okay, so it has got too many tables, but it displays only warning. When if it contains tables, it displays warning and displays the structure of the table. It does not contain any table, then it will display nothing there. Okay, if it is not containing any table, the page doesn't contain any tables, then it will show nothing. But if the page contains some tables, it will display structure of the tables. So like this, you can select any other property and then you can validate it. But these things and all, in the reality, you don't get the situations to validate. All these are normally out of scope for the automation testing for most of the applications. So that is the reason we never implement accessibility checkpoint. Okay, now if you want to do the same thing with the script, just assume that you are using accessibility checkpoint, you are implementing, but you have to validate using script. Same thing. How do we do that? Maybe the question is for you. How do you validate? Now all the images should have alt property. Verify whether it contains the value for alt property or not.
By using description market, we get the colors of the images.
Sorry?
By using description market.
By using?
Description market.
Okay.
We get the colors of the images.
Okay, next.
Go to from first to last way.
Okay.
By using get our property. We will verify the condition.
Till here, right?
Is not equal to alt property.
No, it's not equal to. You say get arrow property of alt. You have to retrieve the value of alt property. If the value contains something, then it contains displays the alt property value. If that alt property is nothing, empty, get arrow property of alt is empty, that means that object does not have alt property. So what you do, first get the collection of images. By using description.create child objects, you can get the collection of images. Then you can loop through first image to last image. Then for each image, by using getRO property, you retrieve the alt property value, getRO property of alt. Then see, if this value equivalent to empty, that image does not contain alt property. If this value is not empty, then it contains some value. That's how you validate it. Similarly, how do you check the content of the table?
By looking.
I want to retrieve the complete structure of the table. Okay, I think I might not have told this. You can do it. Okay. So we'll see the first requirement now. Same thing. How do you validate the alt property? We use descriptive programming here. Set O image equals to description dot creator. So you are creating description object. Then say O image dot add with class give class name as image. Set O image collection equals to browser dot page dot child objects of O image. Then this will retrieve the collection of image objects. For I equal to 0 to O image collection dot count minus 1. Then you say O image collection of I dot getRO property of alt. Okay, then you can say str alt text, something that you can do. If equal to empty, then for now I am just highlighting that, but you can write a failure message. Whatever the image has got empty alt, say highlight. Only the images which doesn't have alt property should vary. You can see first one is not highlighted, right? So this is how we verify whether the images have got alt property. Similarly, if you want to retrieve the structure of a web table, page dot object dot, now if you see here, there are many things have been displayed, right? So there are many properties, and HTML property is missing. Just wait. whatever you see on, nothing but the actions here. Do one thing, just wait. Actually, you should get something called inner HTML. So when you say inner HTML, it will display the HTML structure of that particular object. Let me add one table to the list. I'm just adding to the repository, one table I'm adding to the repository. Then you say dot web table dot object dot, you have many properties here. So these are internal properties, okay. Then you have inner HTML, okay. So you have got something called inner HTML. If you display it, it will display the complete structure of that particular table, okay. So the complete content of the table along with the tags and all. When you say inner text, it will display only the text of the web table, the complete text. Okay, so this is how you can retrieve the structure of any of the object, any HTML object, not only the table. If it is frame or if it is page or all these things, normally you can validate by using inner HTML. Okay. So what you can do, if you want to retrieve the structure of every web table, what you do is, first you get the collection of tables. Set OTable equals to description.create, OTable.add, mid class is web table, then get the child objects first. Set table collection equals to browser.page.child objects of OTable. So this will retrieve the collection of web tables. Then loop it for I equals to 0 to the table collection count minus 1. Then the table collection of I dot object dot inner HTML. So it will display the HTML code for each and every web table. Okay. So that's how normally we can retrieve the content of web table. So by using script, this is how we can write. By using descriptive programming, we can deal with this. Okay. This is what accessibility checkpoint made for. Okay. So we'll stop here today, and tomorrow we will see file content checkpoint, and then we will start with the other topics. It won't take too much time.